Hello and welcome to Childminding and Beyond with me, Beth.
Me, Sam.
And me, Sarah.
Tonight we are talking all about curriculum and planning and everything in between. We are, of course, from 3 different settings, so we're going to get a big, wide range of how we all do it. There is no right and wrong way of how you plan, what your curriculum is, how you document anything. But here we've got some tips for you if you are a bit stuck or don't really know where to start or just want to hear what someone else does. So, Sam, did you want to go first with your curriculum?
Yeah, of course. Mine's basically our ethos is nature and outdoor play. So most of our curriculum incorporates outdoor learning. So we head to the beach, the woods, the forest for forest school, nature walks, everything like that. So yeah, all of our learning, a lot of our learning is done outdoors. And we feel this works well because it's a holistic approach. You're using the whole child. They're using all of their senses, so therefore it embeds the learning, I feel, a lot more. So yeah, even letter sounds, learning about the environment, caring for the environment, we do most of it outside. Entwined in that is a lot of independence. We want our children to be very independent. So we have a job board in our setting. So they choose a job when they come in. It might be collecting the chicken eggs and putting them on the stall to sell. It might be feeding the guinea pigs. It might be cleaning up after snacks, so wet wiping the table. It might be handing out the lunches. It might be doing the recycling, emptying the compost bin, all the little jobs that are around the setting that we feel the children can participate in and that will develop their independent life skills. This is also entwined with various philosophers and theories, so like Montessori, so very much hands-on independence, a lot of Vygotsky and Steiner, so again bringing nature in, Waldorf as well, and also scaffolding their learning. Also with a little bit of Hygge, so which is the Danish learning approach of just taking a moment, appreciating nature and self-reflection, and also baking yummy things to reflect on our week at the end. So yeah, I think that's ours in a nutshell.
Oh, that sounds. I love the sound of that. Actually, both you and Sarah are quite naturey, outdoorsy. You both live by the beach. Um, we're nowhere near the beach, so we can't even drive there. But yeah, it's really nice to hear that different parts of the UK have a completely different curriculum and how they do things in their setting. Um, so yeah, thank you very much, Sam. Sarah, what about yours?
Mine's very similar. We're very outdoorsy. We have the allotment that we visit at least 2 times a week, and I'll have the garden set up daily as well. My curriculum is based around the child. It is very child-led, and everything that I plan is from what that child is interested in and what my group is interested in at the time. A lot of the time, it's sometimes it can just change. A lot of the time it can be sort of on the spot in the moment planning where they'll come in. And for example, I had a little one who came in dressed up in a mermaid costume, and so we went mermaid themed that day. It wasn't what I had planned at all, but we ran with mermaids instead. But yeah, I try and incorporate as much outdoor learning as possible, and again, just very much laid back, following the child's lead, and yeah, seeing where it takes us.
Nice. Um, in terms of curriculum here, I didn't massively know a fat lot about it until um, I had my offset inspection a couple of years ago, and she on the phone she said to me, "Oh, I'll need to see a copy of your curriculum," and I was a bit like,
Someone is
"Sorry."
at the front door.
And she was like, "Oh, I need to see a copy of your curriculum. It needs to be written down." And I was thinking, I don't know what she's on about. I was like, "Okay, no problem, of course." So that night, I just like Googled everything I could find about what sort of a childminder's curriculum. Obviously, we did we did have a curriculum. I just didn't realise that that's what it was called. I thought a curriculum was more for like school-based settings. But yeah, I went away and I wrote everything down that we should. And I think it's just a fancy name, isn't it, of saying how you work. There's a really good training session which is ran by Jamie from.
The childcare guru.
Yes, thanks, Sam. She does a really good training session on how you can build up your curriculum, and especially if you've got Ofsted due, it's a good way of confirming to yourself that you know what you're doing and just putting it kind of. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Trying to put it into.
The meat on the bones, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's, I think, you've got the UIFS statutory framework, you've got I use the development matters. There's all your skeleton, and it's how you put the meat on the bones and your pedagogy and your style of working, what interests you, which you can then pass on to the children. So ours is very much nature, looking at birds, the wildlife around. Sarah's is gardening. So that's how you put it, and that's how you're all different as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's just how you work in your setting, I guess. Like I said before, we all work completely differently, which is fine. We have our own way of working, we have our own personal interests, which we then try and reflect into what we provide for the children. And you most definitely don't have to have it written down. It's just that my Ofsted inspector asked for it to be written down, which is why I have mine on like a Word document. But yeah, it's just.
I haven't got mine written down at the moment, but that's something I will do, because I think if you've got assistants, if you're working on your own, you know how you work, why you work, all the reasons behind it. Whereas if you've got assistants, then it's quite nice for them to have it so everybody's singing off the same,
Yeah.
the same hymn sheet, and everyone knows, your way of teaching.
Yeah,
It's
I
nice to
think.
share with parents as well, isn't it? It's nice to have that written down and to share that with
Yeah,
new
that's a really good addition, Sarah. That's a good one. I haven't thought about that. Yeah, sharing, especially when you've got like prospective parents coming around, what your strength and what the way that you teach and everything. I really like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I also think even if you are working on your own, sometimes you can get a bit lost and a bit, oh, I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and you kind of lose your way a little bit. And I think it's a nice document to kind of reflect back on and think, right, I'm going to read this again to see what my purpose is, what I do enjoy doing with the children, what we like doing as a whole, and then you can kind of think, okay, yeah, I'm gonna kind of wipe the slate clean and go again. And it's nice just to have a bit of a refresh of what your ethos is for your own setting. So
yeah.
yeah, by all means, obviously you don't have to have it written down, but it is something nice to read every now and then.
I think
Definitely.
the word curriculum scares people as well, because it's that not knowing. Oh, what is it? You think curriculum, and like you said, Beth, you think schools.
Yeah,
And it can be quite scary. But when you write down actually how you work and why you work, it's quite nice to read back and think, actually, yeah, that is what I do. And we all go through that, losing your mojo and feeling like you're not good enough and feeling like you're not doing enough. And I think if you are a sole worker, it's really difficult to get that back unless you've got other people to kind of lift you. But so if you're by yourself, you can kind of go back to your curriculum and think, actually, this is what I do and this is what I do well.
yeah,
So maybe that can help boost you again.
and why
But
you do it.
exactly, but looking back on it, I think every so often, maybe 6 to 12 months, is also a good way to reflect, because you grow as a person just as the children are growing. I always feel like even an adult is on a learning journey, even just like the children. So maybe if you do write it down, you revisit it in 6 to 12 months, you can say, actually, my opinions change on this, and this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. So it might be a document that just like a little page or scribble of notes or whatever, that you update as you
Yeah.
progress as well.
And I think don't just delete it or delete bits in and out. I think keep it and file it, and then you can always copy and paste it and then edit things or start a complete new one. But I think it's also a nice thing to get out for an offset inspector when they say, how do you reflect?
Yeah.
And you can say, this is the journey that I've
Yeah.
been on. This is where I've started. Then this happened and I changed it a little bit. And now I'm here because.
Yeah.
Well,
I
it's
think
your own
that's,
progress as well, isn't it? And
yeah, and
like you
it's your
say,
own
it's just another
story.
thing of, it's another way of reflecting. So yeah, keeping the additional copies, I think, is a really good way, Beth. I'm definitely going to do that once I get round to properly writing it. But yeah, it's a, like you say, just to show the officer inspector, this is where I was, this is how I reflected, and you've got that proof and that evidence of your reflection, haven't you? And your journey of how you've, where you were, where you are now, and your journey in between. So yeah, I really like that. It's a good
Yeah.
idea.
And if you're going to do that, make sure you date it as well, so you can say, because anyone, like, you could just go, oh, I think I wrote this a few years ago. Like, I think it would be nice to have the date, even if it was just like spring 2015, 2015. Oh my God, 2025. It doesn't obviously have to be a specific date, but I think it'd be nice, and then you come back at it like every year or so, and then
Well, that's similar to the self evaluation that you used to have to do years ago.
yeah, for sure, for sure. And then I guess once you've got your curriculum and you know your curriculum and how you work, then that leads us on to planning, and how each of our settings plan. So Sam, I'm going to come back to you in that for that one.
I like things written down. Obviously, as a childminder, you don't need written planning. But I am a type of person that needs to know what I'm doing on what day. And my parents, I think it was about 3 years ago now, when I did an annual parental survey, one of them said it'd be really nice to know what you're doing roughly for the week, so I can tell X what they're doing in the morning. So every Sunday night, or tonight, for example, because it's Bank Holiday Monday, I just ping out, this is my weekly plan, subject to change, because it is subject to change. There might be high winds, therefore we can't go to the beach. It might be something might come up and we might think, nah, actually, we're heading to the woods that day, we're not going to do beach. So it's always subject to change. So, and it won't be in depth. It will be like, so for example, this week it says Monday closed, that's bank holiday, Tuesday beach school, Wednesday forest school, Thursday we are closed because we've got a cultural town festival, so everything in Helston closes. And then Friday, I've got hygge baking and garden play. So that's it, basically. That's all they get. So the child comes in and they know they're going to the beach. They know they're going to forest school. And it's on the visual timetable. So what they come in and they think in their head, they can then double check and go, right, okay, yeah, that's where we're going today. So I use the Twinkle Planner. And in the Twinkle Planner, you can see on YouTube or whatever, I've just got the date, then I've got EYFS, what we're doing, then I've got next steps, meals, and to do. So like tomorrow, we've got beach school. We're going to head to the beach. Our children are really interested in snails after last week. There was a squash snail in our garden. So that was the highlight of Friday. We made labels, they drew pictures, wrote squash snail. So that's what they were into, and that's all they talked about all day on Friday. So on the way down to the beach, there are loads of snails. So we're going to take the camera, we're going to take some pictures, we're going to go to the beach, we're going to make big gross motor pre-writing spirals, and then in the afternoon I'm going to print out the photos and they can collage their own photo. Next to it, I've written what I'm going to be looking out for. So a couple of them need noticing patterns, ideal for snail shells, and a couple of them, one of them needs to join different materials together, so that'd be brilliant for her collage. And a couple of the younger ones need meanings to marks. Well, if they don't do a collage, they might draw a snail, therefore they can give their meanings. So it's just little things as a trigger for me and my assistant just to look out for, so we can then add that to their development matters. And then I've got meals, so I know what I'm cooking them, and if there's anything that I need to do in the evening, admin for that particular day. And I find for me, obviously everyone's different, for me that works well. So I'll come back from the beach, I'll upload some observations on baby days, ticking off any that I can. I know what I'm feeding them for breakfast, lunch and tea, so me and Ryan can decide who's doing that. And then in the evening, my to-do list, I think a childminder's to-do list is never ending. It's you basically tick one off and add about three on. So if I wrote it all down, all everything that I needed in a big to-do list, it would be too overwhelming for me. I'd get really fed up. I'd feel like I'm probably not great at the job because I've got too much stuff to do. So I try to add a couple out of my big to-do list in the evenings or during the day that I think, right, I can do, I can do that. Oh, it's funding headcount, I can do that. Oh, it's so and so, I can do that. So that's what works for me. So I have got a rough idea, but like Sarah said, it's child-led. Ours is very much child-led. So this week it's snails because of the interest that 5 or 6 children on Friday shown. And I know that all of mine are interested in majority of nature things. So I know that if I chose a nature way of learning about snails, that they'd all be in there. So yeah, so that's literally how I plan. The same with like the following week. I've got set days that I'm going to the care home. We go to the working farm once a month, so I know what days they're in. So I then fit the other ones around there. And I try to go to like beach school, forest school on alternate days, so every child in my care gets to experience that. So yeah, that's in a nutshell my planning. So it's very, very basic, and it will be on a Sunday night that I will add the meat to the bones of my planning based on the child's interests. So this time last week, I didn't know I was doing snails because mine didn't show any interest in snails until Friday, and then they did, and I was like, right, okay, that's what I'm doing next week. Another, just before I carry on, pass on to Sarah. Another really good thing as well is making sure that you've got a couple of, if you work alone, making sure you've got a couple of friends that you are childminder friends that you are quite close to or you chat with, because I mentioned snails to Beth and Sarah at the weekend, and they were like, have you tried this, have you tried that? And I was like, yeah, brilliant, I'm going to add this in as well. So you've got everybody's different ideas in the pot as well, and I think that's majorly helpful. It is to me, and I think it's to everybody. So if you have got some childminder friends that you are in contact with, or if not, message me Beth or Sarah, but basically that's a bit of a lifesaver for me as well, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can get a bit stuck in a rut, can't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Fresh eyes, isn't it? We're the same people because we do the same job, but it's having those fresh eyes on something as well, something that we might think of that you've not thought of, or something that might work really well that is, you just kind of slipped your mind that week.
And I think by talking to, I had a few ideas, but then by talking to Sarah and Beth, and they gave me ideas, and then I sat there and I wrote them down in a list, and I was like, oh yeah, and it just builds you up, I think, builds you up of your excitement, and that, yeah, do you know what, I'm doing a really good job, because like Sarah said before, or Beth, it is a lonely job. You can quite easily feel a bit meh, whereas, yeah, just chatting to some like-minded people really, really helps.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking out loud now. In terms of, I think it was Sam, you said that you sometimes struggle thinking of activities and then you bounce off our WhatsApp group. Sarah, you're in charge of the Childminder's Voice on Instagram. I don't know if it's worth every now and then putting a box on asking if anyone's stuck for any ideas. So they could just put the age of their child, the interests, and their next steps, and then you could share it with us, and one of us could try and help them with thinking of some ideas.
That's a good idea.
I'm just
brilliant idea
out loud. If anyone wants, or even if the box isn't on the stories, if you just message the Childminder's Voice, Sarah can share that with us, and then there's 3 lots of brains there having a think for you if you're struggling. So
definitely, because sometimes the child will be interested in something really random and you'll be like, oh my God, how can I build that in? And just taking a step back, we've uploaded, or Sarah's uploaded, I say the royal we, Sarah's uploaded lots of activity ideas on the Childminder Voice for VE Day. So we're going to try to add things that things that are prevalent in the particular time. So maybe soon we'll do like a bird theme or a bee theme or a butterfly theme, so we'll get some different ideas up there as well. But if there's anything random, then yeah, please just ping a message over.
Yeah, definitely. Right, Sarah, I'm going to come to you in terms of your planning.
Okay. So I'm very similar to Sam. I have to have things written down. I do use a planner by Widely Organised Planner Company. And in there it has each of your days. I'm showing a plain page because I've got children's names written in my other ones. So it's got the days that of the week that you can write in what you're doing and sort of where those links to next steps and things like that. And then a to-do list, which is too long for me because I would actually fill that plus some and then wouldn't get it all done. But up here I do use these top 3, which are the top priorities. So if I've got like head count is a must that I've got to get done, so that will go in my top priorities, and so long as those 3 top things get done each week, I'm happy. And then on the other side there's different areas that, again, so long as I have offered something in each of these areas, again, I'm happy. So it's literacy, messy play, maths, fine motor, creative, etc. And I will make sure that I've got something planned for the week in each of those boxes. And that just helps me, because sometimes I can plan everything and then it gets to Friday and I think, oh, actually, I haven't done this. Because the area's just been missed. Whereas if I've used that page, then I know that everything has been covered and I'm happy with everything that I've set out for the children.
I really like that because it just makes sure that you've you've offered a balanced program, doesn't it? Because and varied program covering all the areas of the development matters. So yeah, I really like that.
Self in check as well.
Say that again.
It keeps yourself in check.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. Again, another tick for the self-reflection.
Yeah. Sarah, is it worth popping the link to that on the stories on Childminder's Voice?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Where they can get one of those from.
Yep, definitely. Yep, I'll go do that in a minute.
I will send you actually, Sarah, a blank picture of the Twinkle one. So everybody's got different, some different formats because everybody works differently. So yeah, I'll ping you over. That'll be a good one.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, that's what works for me.
Yep.
I know there's a local childminder who literally just uses a diary. It's an A4 size diary, and that works for her. And she writes in everything that she wants, any next steps for the day. It's a double page spread, and that is how she works. That's what works for her in her setting. That's what works for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, it's like the curriculum, isn't it? Planning is if you've got a brilliant memory and you can remember everything, fantastic. You don't need it written down as long as you know up here. But for some of us, it needs to be written down, and different things need to be written down. So yeah. What about you, Beth?
I use a weekly plan which I've designed myself.
I love that.
At the end of the week on a Thursday, I do the reflection pad to reflect on the week, to see what's happened, what could have gone better, what I need to think more of next week, things like that. And then I sit down and I plan for the following week. So I pop down all the next steps that I want to be working on for that week, the interests of each child, and what activities. So it's quite easy to take a next step, what their interests are, to make an activity. And then at the bottom, in the middle, there is an outing. So if we go out anywhere, what food we're planning for that week. And then at the bottom, I've put resources needed, because like any childminder's house, there are nooks and crannies full of resources. So if I have to go up in the loft to find something, then I would put on here that I need to get, I don't know, the farm set out from the loft. And then if I need to buy anything specific, then I'll put it in the to get column. So if I need to go out and get some hay for the farm setup, then I know it's on my planning. I try and plan on a Thursday, because my last day of the week is a Thursday. I try and plan on a Thursday evening, so then if I do need to go out and get something, or Amazon Prime something, I've got a few days to do that. Whereas if I do it on a Sunday, I'm thinking, oh, I can't get anything now if I wanted to do it for a Monday. But that's personal to me. That's how I do it. So yeah, Sarah, I'll send you a picture of this as well, so you can pop that on as well.
Perfect.
Cool. That's fantastic. I think what a range of ways that our curriculum, curriculum, what our curriculum covers, the way we teach, and also the way that we plan and we deliver that particular curriculum. What a wide range of ideas and different, different ways to showcase to everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you have it written down, like we've said, you don't have to, um, but it is really helpful to have it
I
written
think
down.
it's good practice, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It just makes it easier to reflect. Um, and also, you have um, you have a lot of themes that you do every year. So if you think, oh gosh, I can't remember what we did last year, you can go back to last year's planning and have a look. Like if you do the butterflies, the caterpillars to butterflies every year, or things like that, or in for like a few months' time, you have another snail obsession, then you can go back and you can have a look what you've already done and try and tailor that then to their next steps at the time. Um,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
a really good. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Maybe I'll make a sheet with the theme and then the ideas and that, so then I can file them and I can pick them back out.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. Do you guys plan weekly?
I have the crux of it in, like, we go to the care home once a week, we go to a working farm once a month. They are booked in advance because I've got to tell the third party, obviously, the times we're going. Forest school and beach school, I've got a rough idea of when we're going. So forest school will be Monday one week, then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The same with beach school, and we'll fit it all in. But actually, the planning of the meat on the bones is normally done at a weekend for me, because I can incorporate the child's interests.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I think when you're, I think in the moment planning sounds a lot scarier than it is as well. Um, so
It's
although
just
we're,
putting your thoughts on paper, basically, isn't it, of your
yeah,
children.
yeah. And like Sarah, you said earlier, you'd had a plan for that day, but then one of your children came in dressed as a mermaid, so then you scrapped absolutely everything and went with that. And I think sometimes that sounds quite scary, but 99% of the time that's what we naturally do anyway.
We
Um,
do.
yeah,
it's
and it wasn't
innate.
my call to scrap everything and run with mermaids. It was she came in, and she was like, "Oh, look at my dress," and then everybody else, all of her friends, got involved, and it just went through everybody. It wasn't just right. I'll scrap everything and focus on that
It
one child.
escalates, doesn't it? That's
Everybody,
that's how our
yeah,
snails things
yeah,
did.
definitely. And everybody had something else to say. And then they started talking about like the Little Mermaid. And it just kind of, we just rolled with it for the day. So, and everything else can be pushed back another day. Doesn't matter.
No,
Yeah,
I do think it's hard for some people. I've got to say, I'm one of those that find it quite hard. But the squash nail on Friday, a 3-year-old stood on a snail by accident. So that was it. That was the conversation for the rest of the 8-hour day. So
Mhm.
it's then how childminders or early years practitioners are resourceful in thinking, right, okay, I need to forget what I was going to do and just run with that, and just use all your experiences and your different ideas based on their interest.
yeah.
So it's having faith in yourself, I think, as well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think if they're involved in the planning of it or the in the moment planning, they will get so much more from what you're giving them. They will
It's
learn
rich, isn't it?
Yeah.
more than if you think, okay, it's nice that you've squashed a snail or you've come in as a mermaid, but actually I've planned this. They would get a hell of a lot more from it and be a lot more engaged um, by following their lead.
Exactly. And you can tweak things, like Sarah said. You can push things back another day if you had something really good planned. But yeah, it's just rich learning, isn't it? And it's thinking, right, how can I scaffold their learning for that? So yeah, we're going to take a camera out tomorrow to take pictures of the snails on the way down to the beach, so they get to learn to use that. And we're going to print the photos out. Then they're going to do a collage, so they get to use the scissors, they get to use the glue. They love things like that. So it's making their own version of snail. The preschoolers will write snail, the younger ones will give meanings to marks. So yeah, you've just got to think about how you can incorporate your curriculum and the development matters, if you use those, into their interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfectly said. Well done. Thanks, Sam. Thank you, Sarah.
Cool. Thank you very much for listening. And like I say, we'll pop a couple of posts on Childminder Voice. So that if there is anything that your children are interested in, you think, oh my God, what can I do with that? Then ping the Childminder Voice a message, and we'll hopefully give you some inspiration, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, definitely. Here for support, advice, and just to talk to if you need to.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
See you later. Bye.